Okay, right now we're going to be looking at a man that's trying to speak to whomever will listen. Politicians, you would think, are the ones who would listen, but unfortunately, some people have a difficult time getting people to care. So this man here is David Walker. David Walker will tell us a little bit about our economy that we always hear on the news, you know, when they're exploiting opportunity to say the economy looks grim, we have job losses, they say that the GDP is up, however job losses continue. There's a 17 point whatever percentage it is at the time of unemployment and a 17% whatever it is at the time of underemployment, and they don't even address the issues of the homeless people in the streets, many people living in tent cities, and people sleeping in their cars, and you know, all the other issues involved. We're gonna be talking about Haiti, though, a lot about Haiti. Okay, we'll get to the economic issues in Haiti too. Yes, they face economic crisis situations. They're right now facing, well, of course, the collapse of their buildings and such, but we weren't helping them getting those buildings to be strong and make sure they had their own food supply and such. So anyway, we're going to get to David M. Walker here. Let's just check it out, check it out, Holmes. Let's just check it out. I believe you can hear this one.
Whoa,
this is a fast forward.
Urging people to wake up. States is not someone hiding in a cave in Afghanistan or Pakistan, but our own fiscal irresponsibility. As Comptroller General of the United States, he runs the Government Accountability Office.
Wow, this won't take very much of your time. Let's hit fast forward. Let's see if we can find it in there we go.
When the stock market
Here we go.
plunged this past week, everyone pays attention. But short-term losses aren't that important to the man you're about to meet. David Walker thinks the biggest economic peril facing the nation is being ignored. And for this past year, he's been traveling the country like an Old Testament prophet, urging people to wake up before it's too late. Who is David Walker and why should we care? He's the nation's top accountant, the Comptroller General of the United States. He's totaled up the government's income, liabilities, and future obligations, and concluded that our current standard of living is unsustainable unless some drastic action is taken, and he's not alone. It's been called the dirty little secret everyone in Washington knows, a set of financial truths so inconvenient that most elected officials don't even want to talk about them, which is exactly why David Walker does.
I would argue that the most serious threat to the United States is not someone hiding in a cave in Afghanistan or Pakistan, but our own fiscal irresponsibility.
As Comptroller General of the United States, he runs the Government Accountability Office, the GAO, which audits the government's books and serves as the investigative arm of the U.S. Congress.
I'm going to show you some numbers. They're all big and they're all bad.
So bad that Walker has given up on elected officials and taken his message directly to taxpayers and opinion makers.
Dave Walker, how are you? Good to see you.
Hoping to shape the debate in the next presidential election.
You know, the American people, I tell you, we've been to 13 cities outside of Washington this week. They are absolutely starved for two things, the truth and leadership.
He calls it a fiscal wake-up tour, and he is telling civic groups, university forums, and newspaper editorial boards that the U.S. has spent, promised, and borrowed itself into such a deep hole it will be unable to climb out if it doesn't act now. As Walker sees it, the survival of the republic is at stake.
What's going on right now is that we're spending more money than we make, we're charging it to a credit card, and expecting our grandchildren to pay for it. And that's absolutely outrageous.
You've heard this before from Ross Perot 15 years ago.
In 1950, when the dollar was worth a dollar,
You might have even thought the problem had been solved.
Tonight I come before you to announce that the federal deficit will be simply zero.
Okay, it all looks good on paper. But when you're looking at solve your civil problems and your economic problems and your criminal justice problems and your drug war problems and your care problems and your whatever problems they are. We find ourselves without. There sure is a whole lot of money going out the door. Money, money, money. Now, what people do is they talk about raising others' taxes. They don't talk about getting jobs and generating income for the country. So, you know, you're stuck with the burden. So if somebody else spends you into a debt, and then they say, well, we need to get out of this debt that we put you in, we're going to have to make you pay for it even more. We're going to have to raise your taxes. So you keep seeing taxes being raised as a way to solve the economic problem. But unfortunately, it is not the way to solve the problem. Let's just do a little bit more into our economic research studies.
We're warning people about very serious things that are happening in the world. We have the Anglo-American establishment based in England and the United States that has enslaved our people. And they're using our wealth, our military, our name to carry on this globalist empire, this unipolar world, instead of having a multipolar world. And in the PNAC documents, Dick Cheney, Vice President and others, called for a new world order or a global government controlled by the United States and England, but at the expense of the American people. This is an engineered implosion, and now out of it, the Anglo-American establishment based in London, D.C., and New York has announced what we said years ago they would announce. They need a global consortium run by central banks worldwide, who then set the price of currencies for a global currency worldwide, giving them total control. So they engineer the crisis, they create the problem, regardless of whether it was on purpose or not, we know it was, but regardless, they create the crisis, and then they come in and offer the solution, which is giving them unlimited capital, unlimited control, unlimited power over world markets to now create a tripolar, a global currency regulated and controlled by them.
Coming. It is a global depression, and one world currency and one world financial system is the end game. China said last week they want one global currency. France said yesterday or the day before that they want one world order, a new world order at the end of this event.
Good evening, everybody. President Obama and British Prime Minister Gordon today calling for a new world order to tackle our global economic crisis. President Obama said globalization can be an enormous force for good. Prime Minister Brown again pushing for what he calls a global New Deal paid for by the United States.
F.A. Hayek won the Nobel Prize in 1974 for basically saying that if you have a central bank like the Fed that's established by the government, has all these government-granted monopoly privileges, and it forces interest rates below the level that the free market would have set them, it sets the economy on an unsustainable boom. It sets investors out on investment trajectories that cannot be completed. There aren't enough resources to complete them. And so he predicted that there would be inevitably a bust. And a lot of these economists predicted that, of course, the bust would then be blamed on capitalism, as if it's the free market's fault that the government's crummy central bank forces interest rates below where the market would have set them. If we let the market set interest rates, you don't have these crazy asset bubbles. Meanwhile, we've had the Federal Reserve both in the 20s and today inflating these crazy bubbles, and now we've had probably the biggest asset bubble in world history, and they're all claiming they have no idea what caused it. I mean, talk about blockheads.
For sure, I expect to see social unrest, civil unrest in the United States a couple of years from now. Yes, it's changing the entire situation in the United States. The United States is the largest debtor nation in the history of the world. There is a dramatic sea change taking place. The world's center is moving from the west to the east, to Asia, and many people have not figured this out yet, especially people in the United States. No, you're going to see a lot of turmoil in the United States in the next 3 to 4
know,
5
okay,
years.
we'll figure
Putting
out
food on the
problems out.
table is going to be more important than putting gifts under the Christmas tree. We're going to go into the worst depression since worse than the Great Depression.
Wow.
Federal Reserve is no more federal than Federal Express. But yet it has the power to determine the direction of use of money in our economy. If we can take that power back and put the Federal Reserve under Treasury, we start to be in a position of being able to control monetary policy on behalf of the United States people.
Here's where we were in September last year. But then the Treasury decided we need to start printing more money. This hockey stick should take your breath away. This is devaluing our money.
Yes,
we
sir.
have pumped all of this money in and devalued our money. How is it not going to be worthless? This has never, ever been done by anybody ever before.
Who owns the Federal Reserve?
It's secret, and we can't find out what's happening. So, but the Congress created it, and it's not authorized in the Constitution.
The government borrows money from a private corporation using the name Federal that prints United States on it, and then it pays back to the Fed, which is owned by private banks. We don't know who all those private banks are. The money that the government is paying back to the private bankers is the money that comes from you and me.
I think it begins with our own central bank, the Federal Reserve, which 4 years ago created excess liquidity, created excess money. That created global excess liquidity, started a commodities boom, and really destructively spilled over into the housing market, where everyone figured, why not let lending standards come down? Because after all, housing prices always go up, don't they? So that started it.
This is America. How many of you people want to pay for your neighbor's mortgage that has an extra bathroom and can't pay their bills? Raise their hand. How about we President Obama, are you listening?
The year is 2014. Many Americans are feeling disenfranchised. People are isolated from their political leaders. They've been betrayed over and over and over again. Internet connects like-minded people, and the Bubba effect, a rise in individual militias. Give me the, real quick, how much are taxes in our scenario in 2014 to pay for all the stuff that we're doing? How much are taxes?
We tried to pay for all of the spending we've done, and in just the last 18 months with higher tax rates, Heritage Foundation and other groups have estimated the tax rates at the top would have to go to 80, 90, perhaps even 95%, which means that 95% of everything you make would have to go to the government just to pay for what we've already spent money on.
Gerald, what happens to the people when you start taxing?
Tax revolts.
Yeah, tax.
We all heard it on CNBC yesterday.
But you're not talking about a tea party.
No. This is going to be violent. People can't afford it anymore. Look, the city's going to look like Dodge City. They're going to be uncontrollable. You're going to have gangs in control, motorcycles.
My goodness. Can we at least be slightly optimistic, like we are not damsels in distress, laying on the track with a rope over us? She's waiting for Dudley Doolittle to come along and rescue us. Come on, Rusty. My dog is pestering me. Go outside. Come on. Come on. I can't pet you 24/7, bud. If you want out, you want out. He wants something. Always wants something. Anyway, so instead of preparing for civil arrests, jobs, and we're doing quite the opposite. Now, if we go here and look at something that Glenn Beck himself denied existed. We'll just check this one out for a minute. Hold on. All right then, check this out. Preparing for civil unrest and complete death. Complete death. Wow. Want people to die or what? I thought we would kept safe. Let's see here. Look at this stuff. It's crazy, man. I tell you, it's a crazy world.
Not too long ago, I talked with Dale Bohannon, whom I've known since, I guess, the mid-1980s. And he told me something very interesting that he found back in the fall of 2000 while he was on a business trip. Listen to this, folks.
I was
pulled to the side road, which was a new cut gravel dirt road in front of a business, a builder supply business, actually top-notch builder supply in Madison, Georgia. To my right, this was previously was a soybean field, and this little new cut road divided this field, and the right side of the road was filled with which I thought was portable toilets. I never looked at them that close. Same in color, maybe black, but which was an odd color. And I was sitting there going over my notes, and a van pulled alongside of me that turned out to be the property owner. And he greeted me, and he was by himself, and so we had a good little dialogue there, and I asked him about the field of black boxes. What were they? Because I'd never seen anything like that. And his statement was that if he told me, I would be one of few people in Madison, Georgia that knew about them. And he says they're disposable coffins, I believe he told me. And he says there's 100, at that time, he said there was 125,000 there. And they were stacked, he told me 15 high.
All right. 15 high, 100 and some odd thousand, and
the
counting.
critical state that we face in this country, and he said we could lose tens of millions of people in the next decade.
Wow. So you see all the war and stuff going on in other countries, right? Yes, of course. Now,
the FEMA plans to imprison American citizens have generated a lot of interest around the country in locating the potential prison camps throughout the country.
Prison camps throughout the country of America.
These may be facilities currently being used as prisons, such as those you saw earlier, or prisons that are being built supposedly in the name of the war on drugs, or facilities that have other uses but which could be quickly used to detain large numbers of people, such as this Amtrak facility in Beech Grove, Indiana. We're standing now in the main parking lot, which doesn't look too sinister. At this level, it is a very large parking lot, fenced on all sides by fence topped by barbed wire. It also has these electronically operated turnstiles. There is also a surveillance camera, just like we saw at the FEMA facility, pointing out to the parking lot, and a helicopter windsock. All of these apparent security measures are particularly unusual here, because this is a very low crime area, and this facility is nothing but an old train repair station with nothing in it worth stealing. In this portion of the parking lot is a brick building, suitable for processing, next to a gate that leads right out to the railroad tracks. And all of this is contained inside a fully fenced area, now 3 layers deep in fencing at this point. This U.S. Air Force train indicates federal and military involvement. Facing the opposite direction, you can see that this area, too, is a very large fenced area with railroad track running the length of the fence and plenty of warehouses. This facility was supposed to have closed in June of 1993, yet instead several $1 million in federal funds have been spent on supposed renovations over the past 2 years. Helicopter windsocks and markers are evident throughout the property. This small building is the only way into a particular fenced area. Inside this building, we see more of the motion-activated detectors, electronic turnstiles, and prison bars.
Okay.
On the power lines outside the facility. indicating expected helicopter traffic, and again, another tall radio antenna. Looking around, you can get an idea of how huge this place is and how many people it could contain in its fenced-in area. In yet another fenced area, we see a large warehouse building at the end, with the electronic turnstiles in front of it. The building is one that has a new concrete floor, and its doors and windows have all been blocked. Outside, there are new gas pipes. Even as we were filming, a black helicopter flew over us, observing what we were doing, which has happened many times when we have been at the facility. The gas lines and gas pipes at the facility run the length of the buildings. A U.S. Army in the middle of the stockyard. Railroad tracks marked green zone and blue zone, suitable for holding a lot of people.
Okay.
Construction and fencing. Senator Lugar of Indiana recently obtained more federal funding to renovate this facility, which is supposedly only for the repair of broken trains and where most of the buildings on the property haven't been used for years. It certainly appears they are expecting more than just broken trains.
Oh yes, it certainly does. Okay, let's just go to some more things. Concentration camps in America. It's all over.
American citizens have been plans to imprison
Repeat. That's it, it's all over.
fenced area with railroad track running the length of the fence and plenty of warehouses.
Won't shut off. Can you please finish? Thank you.
Beginning in October, the Army plans to station an active unit inside the United States for the first time to serve as an on-call federal response in times of emergency. The 3rd Infantry Division's 1st Brigade Combat Team has spent 35 of the last 60 months in Iraq, but now the unit's training for domestic operations.
Yeah. Let's go back to some more FEMA. We're gonna have our own kids freaking killing their own parents. Mom, Dad, I'm sorry I'm doing this to you. Got me thinking I'm saving us from terrorists. My goodness. People that study the subject of gulags and concentration camps in the United States overlook the fact that the United States is already the world's leading jailer of people. No, we don't overlook it. We know. Let's see, ranked by United States being first, Russia, then South Africa, then Europe, then Canada, Australia, and Japan. Doesn't look like that's in order. Okay, it looks like Europe, then Australia, then Canada, then Japan. America's number one, the land of the free, the home of the brave, the land of the free, democracy, freedom. Okay. USA is the world's worst prison state. Here showing USA way up there. China, then Russia, Brazil, and India, and Mexico, and South Africa, and England, and Japan. We also tend to have the most friggin' some of the most expenditure problems. Okay, let me keep rolling. America already has a gulag archipelago of prisons archipelago of prisons which outnumber any other country in the world. Archipelago of prisons. Archipelago. Already. For the worst. For the worst. America has had a huge increase in prisoners since the 70s, showing an incarcerated rate chart looking awfully bad. There has also been a huge increase in the number of privately owned prisons. Prisoners in adult private prisons. Way up there. The more people they put in prison, the more profits they make. Under martial law, they will make much larger profits still. Corrections Corporation of America. There's a video of a suspicious detention center with train tracks nearby that is privately owned by the Corrections Corporation of America. Okay, then we go to, did you know that some of the politicians are investing in California? Excuse, this private corporation? Yeah. Yes. I'm telling you, we're going friggin' crazy in the world. We're gonna go crazy. They're planning for friggin' craziness. They don't want peace, they don't want democracy, they don't want freedom. They don't want any of that. Apparently not. Planning for friggin' a war here in America like we do in friggin' other countries. You know? It's pretty bad. It's pretty bad. Hold on. Gee, I just typed in a couple of letters and it's already here. Okay. Let me grab this. Find the politicians invested in. I can get my freaking thing to work here. Here we go. Let's see here. Well, let's see. Private prison politicians in Prescott Valley. Real estate trust. Yeah, real estate. You know, there's a lot of money. It's real estate. It's... Okay. High incarceration rate weighing on the United States economy. Can you imagine? Let's see, this is a 2008 report from Seeking Alpha. High incarceration rate weighing on the United States economy with upside for Corrections Corporation. Dated May 6, 2008. Who is the author? I don't see an author. I don't see an author. Let's see what it has to say. The burgeoning United States prison population is having deleterious effect. I'm having a hard time reading. I must be tired. You know, you should be looking into your problems. You know? Really. Really. We're freaking going haywire. We're going haywire in the country. Let's just sum it up. Crazy. We're going freaking mad. Look at all this. Look at all this. The new guy wants to jump in and be the new politician. Can you imagine what's on his mind? Does he want to kill people? Does he want to hurt people? Does he want to become a leader of a friggin' rogue state? Does he want to be a Nancy Pelosi? Do they want to change the laws and go against the Constitution of the United States of America while they promise to uphold those laws? Do they promise to uphold the state laws while they overtax the people and look for new ways to find new ways to tax people? Yes. This is just terrible. It's terrible. Okay, let me get here. Tired. Should go to bed early tonight. Sleepy. Stuff's draining. Bringing so much negativity in the country. They're like, yeah, we can't wait to see it turn into Afghanistan and Iraq here. You know what I mean? It's gonna be terrible. There's gonna be civil unrest. It's gonna be terrible. It's gonna be crazy, chaotic. They're gonna crash the banks. Okay, we're going to hyperinflation. Hyperinflation, what would they be talking about? How does the dollar lose its value? Let's just show you what hyperinflation is and what it can do. I'm a little tired to read right now, I'm sorry. So, we'll give you some documentaries, eh? Here we go. Hyperinflation Nation. 1 of 3. And nothing. Just kidding. Alright. Learning session freaking 101. This is how we learn. I'm listening to a couple people with their friggin' stuck on their way of doing things. Don't want to listen to anyone else.
Let me go to Mark's paper in Budapest. Mark,
I heard you say that you now believe it is 100% guaranteed that we are going to have hyperinflation like Zimbabwe.
Yes, that's correct.
And if we destroy our currency, which is what the Obama plan might do, if we have hyperinflation, it's not going to matter how much money we have because we're not going to be able to buy anything with it.
Well, Adrian, when you print gigantic amounts of money and you flood the world with money, throughout history, that has led to inflation.
If you're worried about $4 a gallon of gasoline, you better worry about an $8 a gallon of gasoline.
The problem is we have a printing press. We can pay our debts by printing money. People think that hyperinflation can't happen here. Well, you know, the laws of physics works everywhere. If you throw a ball up in the air in Zimbabwe, gravity is going to bring it back down.
You can't print phantom money out of thin air based on nothing and producing practically nothing without causing the dollar to devalue dramatically.
That's not deflation, that's temporary.
Quantitative easing is inflation.
But they're going to blow us all up. So my question to you is, will you tell the American people to whom you lent $2.2 trillion of their dollars? Will you tell us who got that money?
Listen to this.
What are those agreements?
No.
Inflation, simply explained, is the printing of money. Inflation is the value of the money in your pocket going down, while prices all around you rise. When gas prices rise, when your grocery bills go up, this is a symptom of inflation. The Federal Reserve is printing money out of thin air every day.
Every day.
Money in the bank, that money is decreasing in value. In other words, we should all be worried about inflation because it affects the prices of everything you use on a daily basis.
Now let me give you
There have
an
been good
amplified
men
version.
warning us for years about inflation. Jim Rogers, Peter Schiff, Mark Faber, Ron Paul, and many others. They have spoken about the uncontrollable spending that will lead to the total collapse of the United States. And then there have been those in power who have ignored the warnings. George W. Bush, Ben Bernanke, Timothy Geithner, Barack Obama, Nancy Pelosi, and all of Congress. We will show you how these individuals, through stimulus plans, bailouts, low interest rates, and the ever-expanding balance sheet of the Federal Reserve will lead to the destruction of the U.S. currency.
We owe the world probably as much, if not more, than Germany owed only we didn't incur this debt fighting the war. We incurred it remodeling our houses and buying cars and television sets and iPods and all these little gadgets that we didn't need, and now we owe the world $1 trillion.
Hey, look, I got a computer out of the deal. What'd you get out of it? Debt? Stuck in a house where you're full of debt and somebody wants to give you the boot? But you've gotten a loan modification just a bandage over your real problem? Oh yeah, the bandage effect. I advise you to look into the TILA laws, TILA and Homeowners and Equity Protection Act. Look at the real issues.
Never before in world history were people able to buy houses with no money down. Many people bought 4 or 5 houses with no money down and no job. And then they did it with cars and student loans and credit card loans. You think we just said, well, that's too bad, we're going to start over, nobody loses his job? Be realistic.
We have to realize that the monetary base, the liquidity was doubled in a few short months. To me, there's a lot of inflation out there. It's already inflation. We're in the midst of inflation because the prices haven't gone up. Doesn't mean we don't have the distortion. And it was that system that gave us the financial bubble, the artificially low interest rates, the malinvestment, all the mistakes made, and now we're trying to correct all that by doing the very, very same thing.
This system that we've had since 1971 is non-viable. It's coming to an end. That's what this whole story is about.
Bush's $152 billion Economic Stimulus Act of 2008 sent $300 to $600 checks to individuals and $600 to $1,200 checks to married couples. When the checks started to arrive, oil prices surged to $147 per barrel. Americans needed the checks just to buy gas. Obama is taking Bush's mistakes and making them bigger. While Bush's stimulus was a direct injection of inflation, Obama's will take a while to work its way through the system, as port projects will take years to be completed, but the long-term effects will be many times worse.
The Obama budget deficits, they dwarf anything that Bush had. It's ironic that Obama is now trying to criticize Bush for running up the deficit, as he's running it up through the roof. $2 trillion in his first term. And he's saying, well, I'm going to cut it in half by my last year. Look, even if he's right, it's still going to be $1 trillion when he cuts it in half. It's still more than twice the last budget deficit from Bush.
In an attempt to reinflate the dot-com bubble, Alan Greenspan lowered interest rates from 6.5% in 2000 down to 1% in 2003. Greenspan did not reinflate the dot-com bubble, but instead created an unprecedented rise in real estate prices. Now, in an attempt to reinflate the real estate bubble, Ben Bernanke has lowered interest rates from 5.25% in June of 2006 to their current level of 0%.
Tell me, what is the worst case scenario? So we have so many economists coming on our air and saying, oh, this is a bubble and it's going to burst and this is going to be a real issue for the economy. Some say it could even cause a recession at some point. What is the worst case scenario if, in fact, we were to see prices come down substantially across the country?
Well, I guess I don't buy your premise. It's a pretty unlikely possibility. We've never had a decline in house prices at a nationwide basis. So what I think is more likely is that house prices will slow, maybe stabilize, might slow consumption spending a bit. I don't think it's going to drive the economy too far from its full employment path, though. The motor vehicle sector may already be showing signs of strengthening. After having cut production significantly in recent months, in response to the rise in the inventory of unsold vehicles, automakers appear to have boosted the assembly rate a bit in November, and they have scheduled further increases for December. There's not much indication at this point that subprime mortgage issues have spread into the broader mortgage market, which still seems to be healthy, and the lending side of that still seems to be healthy. I'm hopeful that I'm confident, in fact, that the bank regulators will pay close attention to the kinds of loans that are being made.
Confident the bank regulators will pay close attention to the kind of loans being made?
Come on, Ben. How could you have confidence when the industry was pushing ads like this?
That's not the point.
What is the point? What? I love that house. Plus the schools.
The kids are 3 and 1.
They're gonna grow up. What? Suzanne researched this.
This is special, John. You guys can do this.
We can do this.
Okay.
Are you kidding me? This is awesome.
Sue says in a garage?
Yes.
Oh, that's great. Now we get to work.
And it wasn't just Ben Bernanke's incompetence. Congress did its part too.
The only way they can pass this bill is by creating and sustaining a panic atmosphere. That atmosphere is not justified. Many of us were told in private conversations that if we voted against this bill on Monday, that the sky would fall, the market would drop 2,000 or 3,000 points the first day, another couple thousand the second day, and a few members were even told that there would be martial law in America if we voted no. That's what I call fear-mongering. Unjustified. Proven wrong. We've got a week, we've got 2 weeks to write a good bill. The only way to pass a bad bill, keep the panic pressure on.
1,100 pages not one member of this body has read. Not one. There may be some staffer over in the Appropriations Committee that read all of this last night. I don't know how you could read 1,100 pages between midnight and now. Not one member's read this. What happened to the promise that we're going to let the American people see what's in this bill for 48 hours? But no, we don't have time to do that.
Don't have time to talk about it in front of you either. So they go behind closed doors, make secret business meetings. Or they throw around that friggin' martial law loosely, don't they? Yeah, what? Support friggin' narco terrorists in some other country? Look at that. Something got blocked. Would not allow me to get another video. What's the dealio? Okay, this isn't the greatest documentary here, but it does reach on some points. That's what we're trying to get to, reaching on some points. I want to touch on them. What is this? 2, 3. I don't want 2, 3. I want 2. Jeez. Here we go.
This policy has never worked. The Americans tried it in the 90s. The policies which have worked, let people who make mistakes collapse, let people who are competent take over the assets from the incompetents and start over. Now what's happening is the governments are taking the assets from the competent, giving the assets to the incompetent, and saying, now you compete with the competent. Jim, this is not going to work. I mean, this is madness.
The madness started in 1989 when the government set the precedent of bailing out failed institutions. Since then, it has spiraled out of control. Now our government prints trillions to bail out all sorts of private corporations. These companies used excessive leverage to recklessly speculate while paying themselves huge bonuses. Since Obama was elected president, the Federal Reserve and U.S. Treasury bailout commitments have risen from $7.4 trillion to $14.2 trillion. $3.7 trillion has already been spent. The last country to see such a dramatic increase in the money supply was Zimbabwe, under the leadership of Robert Mugabe.
We have different economic schools. We have the Austrian school, the school of rational expectations, monetary schools, and so forth. In the US, We have a totally new school. It's called the Zimbabwe School. And it's founded by one of the great leaders of this world, Mr. Robert Mugabe, that has managed to totally impoverish his own country. And that is the monetary policy the US is pursuing. If something goes wrong, print. If it doesn't get fixed, print more.
In February of 2006, Robert Mugabe directed the Zimbabwe Reserve Bank to print $20.5 trillion to buy foreign currency to pay off IMF debt. This caused prices of consumer goods to go through the roof, and in May of 2006, the Zimbabwe government announced they would print an additional $60 trillion to pay for a 300% salary increase for the soldiers and policemen. In August of 2006, 3 zeros were chopped off the currency to form a new Zimbabwe dollar. And in June of 2007, $1 trillion of the new currency was printed to pay for a 900% salary increase for the soldiers and policemen. In July of 2007, Mugabe implemented price controls which forced stores to sell goods at government-ordered prices. This led the nation to complete chaos and empty store shelves. Mugabe's solution was to print more money, and in February of 2008, the total Zimbabwe money supply reached $800 trillion. By July of 2008, it cost $100 billion just to buy 3 eggs. In April of 2009, the Zimbabwe currency was officially declared dead and completely worthless. Zimbabweans were forced to transact in gold.
If you need cooking oil, you have to exchange with gold. If you need melamine, you have to exchange it with gold. If you need soap, you have to change it with gold. Everything is gold, no Zimbabwean dollars.
Gold has been universally accepted as real money for thousands of years. Unlike fiat currencies, gold can't be printed out of thin air. Gold is expensive to mine, and its supply will always be scarce. In 1980, the last time the United States had an inflationary crisis like the one we are rapidly approaching, gold prices surged to an inflation-adjusted high of $2,300 per ounce. Federal Reserve Chairman Paul Volcker was able to get inflation under control by raising interest rates to a high of 21.5%. Back then, we were the world's largest creditor nation. Today, we are the world's largest debtor nation with a national debt of $11.4 trillion. The Federal Reserve is forced to raise interest rates up to 21.5% once again. Just the interest on our national debt will be over $2.4 trillion per year. This is a death sentence for the American taxpayer. The United States may have an annual GDP of $14 trillion, but more than 70% of it is consumer spending. The only way it will be possible for the United States to pay off its debt is by monetizing it and effectively printing the money out of thin air. The national debt is not our only major problem. Unfunded liabilities for Social Security and Medicare and Medicaid are now $55 trillion. Up until now, the Social Security system has worked like a Ponzi scheme, not unlike the one that was run by Bernie Madoff. Americans with jobs are paying into Social Security to fund those who are receiving benefits. With the retirement of the baby boomers, the Social Security house of cards is coming to an end.
Our dollar today is worth 4 cents compared to the dollar of 1913 when the Federal Reserve took charge of it. And if you don't deal with the dollar, there will be no retirement for anybody. We're going to have chaos. And that is why you have to cut spending. That's why we need a new foreign policy. We need to tie the people over here in this country, the people who are dependent, but we need to let the people get out, whether it's Social Security or medical care or education. The Constitution doesn't advise that we do any of that anyway. That's the only way we can solve the problem.
Throughout history, the United States has had cyclical periods where paper assets, like stocks, are in favor, and other periods when hard assets, like gold, perform better than stocks. The long-term battle between stocks and gold is illustrated by looking at a chart of the Dow to gold ratio, which is the price of the Dow Jones Stock Index divided by the price of gold. After reaching a high of 44 in 1999, the Dow to gold ratio has been in free fall to its current level of 9. If the Dow to gold ratio bottoms once again at 1 like it did in 1980, we are looking at another 90% decline in the price of stocks when priced in gold.
The Dow is going to be worth 1 ounce of gold. That's the level. So right now gold is worth $900 an ounce and the Dow is at 12,000. Those two numbers are going to meet somewhere. I don't know where, but they're going to meet.
Silver prices have the potential to surge by an even greater percentage than gold. The Coinage Act of 1834 established a gold to silver ratio of 16 to 1, which lasted until silver was demonetized in 1874. The gold to silver ratio is currently close to 70, which means silver is receiving almost no monetary premium. During periods of high inflation, the gold to silver ratio tends to move back to 16, as it did in 1980. Imagine if the Dow to gold ratio returns to 1, and the gold to silver ratio returns to 16 at the same time. If the Dow and gold met at the median of their current values, we'd be looking at $4,700 per ounce gold and $294 per ounce silver. That would represent a 2,000% increase in the price of silver from its current level of $14 per ounce.